Hi everyone, my name is Laura Potter and I worked with Julie Rama, Zane Elderman, and Mike Vasquez on a web scraping project where our goal was to find out how to improve your work experience with employees in the retail and tech industries through Glassdoor reviews. So to provide a little background for our business case, we found a couple of facts that show why companies should care about what is said about them on Glassdoor. In 2016, survey consulting firm Comdata found that 15.1% of the U.S. workforce left their jobs. We also found that the retail industry has a substantial turnover rate of 59%, and employees working in the tech industry only stay for about 2 years in that industry. An economic implication of negative reviews includes the costs of hiring new employees as a result of high employee attrition. For example, internal and external recruitment costs, lost productivity, training costs, and increased likelihood of errors. A bad reputation also means additional wage spending must occur to encourage prospective employees to join the company. Additionally, consumers, employees, and clients may be dissuaded from buying goods, continuing working for, and doing business with a company that has a bad reputation on Glassdoor, which can in turn impact the company's revenue over time. A key question we wanted to answer was, do different companies in the same industry have similar employee review sentiment on Glassdoor? Simply put, our approach was to develop sentiment analysis on Glassdoor using Glassdoor reviews that identify the key features or words associated with negative sentiment, and then see if we could gain any insight on employee attrition. Now, Judy will go into explaining our data acquisition process.
To get our data, we first have to figure out what companies to pick. So we use the Dow Jones Index as a good gauge on finding these companies. So we first pick the top 10 and bottom 10 performing companies based on their stock performance in the past year. So we picked, so that can be 20 companies, and we started to make our sentiment models, and we found that some of these models weren't strong enough, mainly because the cost distribution wasn't equal. So from those 20 companies, we filtered it down to 10 companies, and then from the 10 companies, we grouped them by industry. So we focused on the retail industry and the tech industry. So for retail, we picked Home Depot and Walmart, and for tech, we did Boeing and IBM. So in general, we scraped from Glassdoor. We scraped 500 ratings and corresponding reviews. So this is just an image of how it looks, the whole review. So you see on the top the rating and the corresponding Google block. So before we could make the models, we did some pre-processing. So the first thing was we had to relabel our ratings, positive and negative. So we normalized the data by lowercasing all the text. Then we removed any numbers, contractions, punctuations, and stop words. And then we also lemmatized. As for our models, we created sentiment analysis using the employee reviews and the ratings. When we made these models, we first used all the combinations of n-grams, so bigrams, trigrams, unigrams, and we came to find that the bigrams and unigrams combination created the best model, so that became our feature set. And for the label is the positive and negative that we recoded. And then we ran some of the classification models, so that's the 90-base, the business entry, logistic regression, SVM, and we did a 75-25 split. However, for SVM, it did fail to converge, so we took that model out. So these are our modeling results. To get a more accurate value for each of these metrics, we ran each model 10 times for each of the 4 companies, and we took the average of those values. So, and for all 4 of the companies, the 90-base was the best performing model, and this we based it off of negative recall. So Boeing had negative recall of 80%, IBM of 84%, and Walmart and Home Depot both had a negative recall of 85%. So negative recall, it measures false negatives. So if the word was predicted positive but actually negative, this would lead to a greater opportunity cost because there will be any attempt to retain that employee, leading to additional hiring costs. So I'm going to give it to you to talk about key features.
Thank Thank you. So based off of Rubik's forward with biograms and newgrams, we created these tables with positive and negative words for companies in their similar industries. So for the red words, those are the negative words that are similar, and for the blue ones, that are positive words that are similar. And for Boeing, as you can see, we have many informative unigrams and biograms, such as bureaucratic, bureaucracy, people don't like being told what to do and following orders. Engineer work, engineers feel stressed out with their work at times. But there's also positive words, such as young talent. People enjoy working with these fresh new minds. And also they enjoy the flexibility that the place has to offer. While for IBM, for the negative words, senior management was also a big issue. Additionally, they felt their 401k wasn't up to par with other companies as well. But they did have positives too. They enjoyed their salary, they also liked their flexible work, and they also felt that they were important employees who were bringing value to the workplace. And as I mentioned before, we have common themes right here, which I said were bureaucracy, lack of a bonus, senior management problems, career advancement, and challenges. But there were also positive common themes too, such as the great talent, great salary, flexibility of the work, and the culture. And the main difference to note here is that Boeing seems to have good benefits, but IBM seemed to have poor benefits. And then also Boeing employees had a very good work-life balance, while IBM employees seemed to struggle with having one. And here's a visualization comparing the positive and negative word ratio. So for example, with the word benefit pay, every one that review appeared in for Boeing, it appeared 4.8 times in that, so benefit pay was a big theme for Boeing. And additionally, career development was a big negative theme that we saw too. People felt that they weren't really advancing in their career. So most people left negative reviews, so it was a 7-to-1 ratio, negative to positive. And then for IBM, for the negative positive ratio, as I mentioned before, they had a strong company culture and many people liked that. So it was a 3 to 7-to-1 ratio. And also the opportunities, they felt they had a lot of chance to grow. So for every 5.4 positive reviews, there was a negative review. And then here we have some review examples that talk about previous words that were mentioned. IBM talks about how they were big pro flexible work and good benefits. They were complaining about their upper management. And for Boeing, they talked about the great flexibility and the time at the company, but they also talked about the bad con of having no promotions. And here's another similar comparison we have with the retail industry against Walmart and Home Depot. And for Walmart, they have a lot of negative words, such as pay. They feel their pay isn't very strong. They feel that they have trouble balancing the work experience as well. And they also feel that the work is very slow and boring. And for their positives, so they feel that they have good benefits, a great flexible schedule, friendly staff, friendly customers, and then they also have a good opportunity for promotion. And then for Home Depot, they feel that for some of the negative aspects, they feel they have a big training program, they feel that the environment is changing rapidly with new management and new rules coming in, and they don't really like that. They also feel that some of their customers are rude compared to other places, and that the amount of staff seems to be lacking at times. They feel understaffed. But for the positive words, for Walmart, the benefits was another great thing. Benefits, flexibility, friendly people, and then promotions. And for Home Depot, promotion was also very for them. And they also felt they had a strong 401k and great coworkers as well. And as I mentioned before, some of the common themes were bad pay, change in the environment, and the management. But for the positives, some of those were the benefits, friendly coworkers, and promoting. And the big difference to note here is that employees at Walmart seem to complain a lot more about their work being very slow and dry, while Home Depot felt they had an enjoyable time at work, working with people and customers and being in a fast-paced environment. So also the visualization here illustrating some of the key words in the negative positive ratio of these. So benefits was a big one for Walmart, as it was 5-to-1. Flexibility was 5 to 6-to-1, so it was another big thing too. Management was the largest negative thing, so for every 8.7 negative reviews, it appeared 1 positive time. And then for Home Depot, as I mentioned before, 401k they felt was very strong, so many employees mentioned it in reviews, leading to be a 3.2-to-1 ratio. And they also felt that they had nice coworkers, and they always would talk about that in reviews, making it a 4-to-1 ratio. And they were happy about the promotions too, and they had that 3.5-to-1 ratio. And here we have some example reviews based off the words mentioned in those previous text boxes and visualizations. And the big con here we said was for management, and Walmart man talks about that. They say that the hours are hurting their pay, and that management's not really concerned about their associates, including the coverage. And they also talk about how the work's boring and that it's hard and it's a lot of walking. While for Home Depot, one of the big cons was the lack of respect with management, and they felt that their pay was bad, as their work quality didn't necessarily equal to their pay. And also, however, they did feel their work was enjoyable. And now Michael is going to be talking about the big retail versus tech industry positive and negative aspects.
So we found a few key positive aspects of the company that I'd like to share. So flexibility was the major key factor that we found that employees felt very valuable, and we believe that it would contribute to a higher employee retention. But there were a few different key elements across the industries. So retail employees found more greater opportunity for promotions and raises that would go along with them. But in the tech industry, they felt they brought more value to the company and they had an impact, so they felt they were part of the company's success. And as all jobs, there's no perfect job, so of course there's going to be negative reviews. So with the biggest issue across all 10 companies was management, was evident in all industries, so we know that is the biggest key factor. But another key factor that we also found across the 4 companies we did learn, that they felt that they were being underpaid and they felt like they were being overworked as well. But the differences was more for the tech industry, how they felt more stress, and they expressed it more in the reviews due to bureaucracy, and there was much more challenges that they had to overcome. And the tech industry employees felt they had a little career advancement due to the hierarchy of how it's set up in the business world. And I'm going to pass it on to Laura, who will share some great insights.
Yeah, so to sort of sum up our presentation, one of our key insights that we found, as Mike just said, was flexibility from both industries. Retail employees enjoy scheduling flexibility, whereas tech companies' employees value the option to work from home. Both industries have a lot of complaints to say about management, which was the most frequently used negative word across all 4 of our companies. So some of the comments people mentioned about management were that they aren't understanding, they should be retrained, they lack professional knowledge, they favor employees over others, and they're not good at communicating. Employees in the tech industry complain that work is stressful, which leads to higher risk of turnover. Ultimately, we think that management should give their employees more manageable projects to alleviate some of the stress associated with technical work. They should also be sure not to overload employees with work and should do regular check-ins to ensure they're not being overwhelmed with their jobs. Possibly HR could consider stress training to help employees or retreats to incentivize them to stay. So that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
One question, yeah. Which company do you want to work with? All right, thank you. Just one quick request, if you could talk to the mic as you present.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hirsch Desai. I'm here with my teammates. Here's Danny Cabrera, Michael Dieterin, and Emily Ung. And we're presenting to you GoFundMe. GoFundMe is the world's #1 personal fundraising website where they allow people to raise funds for different events, different life events, I should say, whether it be graduation or illness. So, what is our project goal? We are here to present to you how can GoFundMe increase the number of donations for its crowdfunding campaign success. To take you there, let me see. The background for this company is that it's a #1 fundraising platform, right? So they have already raised $5 billion and they already have more than 50 million donors. So what might be the real problem here? The real problem is that despite being able to raise more than $5 billion, they have only successfully funded 1/3 of all their campaigns. And that's a big problem because not everyone is able to fund all their events. So, in order to identify what's really going wrong, our goal here is to obtain the most informative features and run the best performing models to show us where people are going wrong in their ad campaigns. What words are they using right? What words they are using wrong? We are also analyzing the emotional sentiment in the title and the summary page in order to realize where they're going wrong. And then we are also determining the category that has the greatest success and the outcome for the campaigns that might meet the monetary goals. So Danny will take you through all the performance.
So one of the biggest obstacles in this project was obtaining the data. I feel like a Python wizard after going through this GoFundMe, thanks to GoFundMe. It was everything from dynamic web pages to different web pages depending on the category of the event. So you had to make sure that you put every if and then option for it to run smoothly. So we went first to scrape by category. We went by every category that they had, and then we iterated the pages, thinking we were being smart by downloading the web page links into a CSV. Later on we found out that the pages were dynamic and they changed as the campaigns were closing. Another obstacle was figuring out which campaigns have been closing, because GoFundMe is not that friendly to say, hey, here are the closed campaigns, go look at them. So a lot of our coding was feature engineering and trying to figure out, well, what are the key features that we can pull out from this data to run our models. So to be able to say that the campaign was successful, we needed to get the textual data from the money, how much was requested versus how much was received. If it was greater than 1, then it became successful, or a positive to negative label. We did a category, title, and the body of text. Then we went into feature engineering. We used one of the libraries called TextBlob that allowed us to do some sentiment analysis on the entire body of text to see, and it gave us polarity and subjectivity to determine the sentiment analysis for our feature engineering. We also did the regular coding of doing bigrams, unigrams, n-grams, trigrams to do our to run it through our classifier models. Now Mike is going to talk about our model performance.
So going into this, we really wanted to look at recall mainly, because we wanted to, that we felt it kind of paralleled our business plan, increase true positives and decrease false negatives. And this is what we ended up getting. So this is the naive Bayes model. And after looking at this for a while, we decided it wasn't very pretty looking, and we decided to go with a ROC curve. We figured the AUC would be a little bit better metric. AUC is just the probability that the classifier is going to score a randomly selected positive record, a little bit higher than a randomly selected negative record, which, as you can see here with the logistic regression, it did. Once again, it's not very pretty, but you can see that the n-grams scored the best with a 0.57, followed by the bigrams, 0.56. And of course, like everyone else, our naive Bayes model just kind of stood out as one of the best. Bigrams here, 0.637. I'm assuming that this is because with the ROC curve and AUC, it is susceptible to a lot of noise. I'm thinking that that's why it was a trigrams, n-grams area. It was just a little too noisy. Here's some of our most informative features. It just so happened, because the web pages were dynamic, this changed every single time we ran it practically. It just so happened at this time when we ran it, it was positive to negative 7.8 for each. But you can see some of the words, some of the bigrams, and this is bigrams from my Bayes, like the fire. It's a tragic event. Of course, that's going to be something where we expect it to be funded. Donate, to generosity. So you can see how some of these will correlate with positive, successful campaigns. Here's an example of a campaign that we actually found through our data. New van for a great man. And you can see that a few of the diagrams that we found to have the 7.8:1 ratio that's found over here. So I had no idea this would happen. It's a tragic event that came out of nowhere. Emily's going to talk over some of the categories.
Thanks, Mike. So the next thing that we wanted to try and do was figure out how many of the successful campaigns, which category they mostly fell under. And we found that the positive to negative ratio, please disregard the negative, it's not -1, it's just a 1. So event was the top performing category, and next was animal. So if you have a cat that's having a birthday, probably get fully funded. And then next we wanted to show the relationship between categories. It was not really surprising what we found, like sports and competitions were closely related, events was closely related to community, and travel, and then you have charity and volunteer work. So we were kind of curious if that would reflect the top two, but yeah, it seems like they were pretty obvious too, why they're connected. And then going on to the emotional sentiment, we wanted to know if there was positive sentiment or negative sentiment, how that would affect how many donors that you get for your campaign. So negative being, if there's words that are sad or unhappy, and words that are positive would be, unhappy, obviously. So successful here, they were able to fully fund for their campaign, and we found that negative sentiment actually got more donations, so don't be too joyful in your campaign write-up. And our recommendations, this is kind of like a recap of things we already talked about. Some of the key words were if you show that you're grateful to your donors, it means a lot to them. So if you use the words like the generosity or be forever, usually ended up with be forever grateful. That means a lot to your donors and will pull in more donations. And also, like Mike mentioned, if you have no idea that the tragedy occurred or didn't have any idea about a medical condition, that tends to get more empathy and more donations as well. And not to be repetitive, but the top two categories that were most successful were events and animals. And I won't repeat the emotional sentiment because we just went over that. And the last thing that we did that we thought was really interesting is that we did an analysis on the average amount of words that are found in successful campaigns, and we found that 300 words was the average found in successful campaigns. And we also found that 75% of campaigns that had 500 or more words were unsuccessful. So the takeaway from that is keep your campaign short and sweet and to the point, make it sound kind of sad, tug on the heartstrings of your donors. And that concludes our presentation. We want to open up the floor to any questions you guys might have.
Have you guys ever used a GoFundMe before, personally?
No, I've used an Indiegogo, but not GoFundMe. Saw a lot of cats with medical conditions.
One time I ran a bicycle was like super hard too.
Thank you.
Hi, we're Group 4, and our focus was on the crowdfunding site UCaring, which is similar to GoFundMe. I'm Dakota, this is Natish and Alan, and our fourth member, Chris, unfortunately could not be here tonight. So, a little bit of background about what crowdfunding is. It's basically you're raising money for some kind of project in small amounts through a large number of donors, typically online. So there are 4 types of crowdfunding. There's donation-based, which runs kind of like a charity. There's equity-based, in which people receive a stake in the project. There's rewards-based, in which people get some kind of prize or service from. And then there's lending-based, which works kind of like a bank where they get their money back with interest. So our focus was donation-based crowdfunding, which represents the smallest sector of crowdfunding, because it basically only involves people's goodwill and their altruism. Some examples of donation crowdfunding sites are YouCaring, GoFundMe, Indiegogo, Rocket Hub, and Kickstarter. So a little bit about YouCaring is that it's focused on supporting individuals, communities, nonprofits, in helping fund medical campaigns, education funds, and disaster relief. So far, since its inception in 2011, it's raised over $1 billion to aid many people in need. So something unique about YouCaring is that it doesn't charge a service fee, just a small transaction fee, whereas many other sites charge up to 15% service fee. So our focus was basically on funerals and memorial campaigns, so we really narrowed it down to a certain type. And the purpose of these campaigns is basically to reach their goal or go above their goal amount. Our objective for our modeling was what features really entice these people to donate. We scraped some numerical features such as goals, shares, and the number of donors to see if they had an effect on the success. And we also looked at some keywords in the title and description that could possibly lead to a more empathetic response or more donations. So we're looking to help these families in need to raise funds for memorial services and funerals of their loved ones. So why are we doing this? Well, the price of funerals has gone up in recent years, and the average cost can range anywhere from $7,000 to upwards of $10,000. And because of this, many families can't afford to provide proper arrangements for their loved ones. So in addition to the funeral costs, many families also incur difficulties with losing their primary breadwinner, so they need help funding their kids' education or family expenses and so on and so forth. So using this model, we hope that the families will be able to maximize the potential of their campaign, helping to ease that financial burden in their difficult times. So now Natisha's going to talk a little bit about the data and our modeling approaches.
Thank you, Dakota, for giving us the brief on YouCaring. So what have we scraped? Basically, you can see the elements that we have scraped. It begins with campaign goal. This is the target amount which the campaign is requesting from donors. Then we have the campaign title. It's a small blog describing the campaign. And then we have the campaign story. This basically gives you the description of what the cause is for the particular campaign. Then we have person funded. This is basically our target variable. This is actually the current funding divided by the target goal. Then we have number of donors. This is people who have donated to a particular campaign. We have number of shares on social media. And further to give you an overall statistics of our data scrape, we had 540 campaigns scraped from the memorial and funeral category. And the balance in data in terms of successful and unsuccessful campaign was 49 to 51. And the average donation amount which was requested by a 540 campaign was $22,000. This is a snippet of one of the campaigns to give you a perspective of what titles or features were extracted. So the first block, as you can see, pertains to the title campaign. The second block has two elements in it. One is the first one is the amount that has been received up to date, and the second element is basically the goal of the campaign. Then the third block is the number of shares. Basically, you can share this on various platforms to increase your reach, be it on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media. And then we have the number of supporters. These are actual people, or the number of people who have donated to this campaign. And finally, we have the campaign description. This gives you a perspective of what the campaign is all about. Now, digging deep into our data, so we have categorized our target variable, which is person funded, and labeled campaigns as successful, the ones which have achieved 80% of their funding, and those as unsuccessful who have not achieved or which are below 80% of their goal. Other engineered features which we have made in our data set are title word count, title average word length, campaign story word count, and campaign story average word length. And now getting to the modeling results. So this is a classification model, and we have run the naive Bayes, decision tree, and logistic regression. So what metric was best for our case? It was recall, because it predicted the successful, or the probability of identifying successful campaigns. So as you can see, logistics, it has a recall of 0.91 or 91% in identifying successful campaigns. So our modeling was based on logistic regression. And now we have Alan, who will discuss insights and next steps.
Thank you, Nitish. So digging into our data, we found that some of the most important features are as follows. Number one being the most influential words. And these are words such as teammate, and then there's grieve, single, becoming, nightmare, and hero. The word teammate, for example, has a 92% success probability according to our data that we collected. The single words also convey an emotion. The word teammate, for example, it could tell us that the person was a young, or maybe still in school, and they were dedicated to a sport. Or even like the word such as hero, who are maybe a mom or dad, or a civil servant such as a police officer, a firefighter, or even in the army. And those evoke an emotion among the readers and encourage them to donate. So we also found that the average word length in the title play an important role in determining whether the campaign will be successful or not. Words that are longer tend to be more successful according to the data that we scraped. And we also found that the story word count within the description of each campaign lead to or show a pattern. And as like the previous project described, 300 words should be your ideal goal. Campaigns with more than 300 words do not fare as successful as campaigns with 300 or under words in their story description. And lastly, but not the least, this is the most obvious one. More shares obviously lead to more successes. And according to our data, we saw that campaigns which had more than 750 shares across the platforms had a 100% success rate. So obviously, you want to maximize the number of shares that you have through your social media or word of mouth to get people to donate to your campaign. So what are our conclusions? Our data scraped from the memorial and funeral campaigns had a couple of takeaways. Number one being that certain words showed that they had an influence on the success of the campaign. The descriptive titles also show that are something that captures a person to click into a campaign. And so if the words are descriptive enough, it will encourage more people to click into it. And third one would be the number of words. We should limit the number of words within the story of a campaign to 300 words to achieve the greatest success. And lastly, try to reach as many people as possible by sharing the campaign. Our data shows that the campaigns have a greater probability of success with more shares. So how can we, or what are our next focus? Number one being that we realize not all campaigns are the same. Different campaigns have different qualities within them that evoke an emotion or encourage people to donate to the campaign. We can use the data and the models we found to try and compare other campaign categories. We can also see that most of these campaigns have a picture to them, and a picture speaks 1,000 words. We can use our improval model or use the picture attributes within each model to figure out what or if there is any factors within each picture that allows the person to donate to the campaign more. And then we also see that the impact of social media shares, and we can narrow down to which social media platform is the most influential or is the most helpful in gaining donors to your campaign. And thank you. Any questions?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Dr. Berenson and I really appreciate this, now we know what to do. I'm gonna be immortal, so.
Hopefully not anytime soon.
I have a quick question. So you indicated that descriptive titles are important, but you also indicated that longer titles are utilized to have more successful funding techniques. What words were within those titles? Because I noticed that there was a list of words. Were they tied to titles or just beyond words?
They were tied to the stories of the campaign. Within the campaign itself, if you had words like teammate or hero, those were more influential.
As far as titles?
Titles, the word length, the longer the words or the average length of each word, or the more complex the word is, it tends to get more people to click within a campaign and donate to them. Thank you.
Good evening, colleagues. My name is Peter Ferrara. These are behind me my team members. I'm Luke.
Hi, Ryan. I'm John.
Tonight we're going to talk to you a little bit about indications of lying in politics and the statements or quotes that they claim. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the idea that politics statements get put into question, deciphering between whether they're true or in fact false. A good example of this is this quote by Donald Trump here. There's really no indication of being able to tell exactly if he's telling the truth or how far away from the truth he is. And during this presentation, we're going to discuss some popular indicators in being able to decipher between a truth or a lie.
So while we can leverage machine learning techniques to better determine lies from statements, there are some limitations. So Albert Vree, an expert in lie detection at the University of Portsmouth, concluded a verbal cue akin to Pinocchio's groaning nose does not exist. However, some verbal cues can be used as weak indicators. So some examples featured in this book, while not being our focus, include negative statements, generalizing terms, self-references, immediacy, response length, answer plausibility, lexical diversity, as well as consistencies contained within statements by the speaker. So here to talk about our focus.
So our focus is really simple. We want to take a look at what we had, those statements they were making. We want to look for things like word currents, in addition to the factors that we know that they contribute to lying, as Tony stated. Additionally, we wanted to know if they were susceptible, politicians that is, to machine learning, and see if their statements are true or false based on the algorithms that we run. Additionally, we also wanted to see if this could be potentially a business opportunity or if it's more of a knowledge-based approach.
So where do we get our data from? So we got our data from a fact-checking website. It's called PolitiFact. Basically what it does is it takes statements from various politicians and analyzes them based on the accuracy, and it goes on a scale from pants on fire, which is completely false, to true, which is the statement is accurate. And this is taken from the PolitiFact website, so this is how they kind of stay unbiased. So they try and avoid public expression and any sort of public involvement in politics. They don't interact with any sort of political funding, and their expressions, they're basically kept to themselves. So they try and keep an unbiased kind of view on this. So the people we picked to analyze was Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Chris Christie, and Donald Trump. And the reason why we did this was because they had the most statements. We wanted to have enough data to be able to scrape. And these politicians are usually in the headlines and they're often scrutinized with whether they're accurate or not.
Alright, just a little pre-processing before we train and test our models. This is the layout of the web page. For each politician we scraped the source as well as the quote, and then we inspected the image of the, that's called the truthometer. That's their patented lie detection meter. So what we did, they were ordinal variables, so we just transformed them, true, mostly true, half true to plainly true, and then the same for a lie. And then our class of interest was a lie. We were trying to identify political statements as being a lie opposed to the truth. So our model creation, we did the generic classification models of naive Bayes, decision tree, and logistic regression. And we also used the bag of words in order to determine the frequency pertaining to each labeled quote. And we did individual models for each politician.
So our first politician that we took a look at was Chris Christie. He has lower than 200 statements, but again, we were looking to be balanced out. So he had enough statements for the Republican side that we could use to model on. If you look at the class distribution of it, it's pretty even if you look at both sides of it, but if you take them together in the same context, it's a little more skewed one way or the other. If you look at the results of the models,
so we have 3 models that we use, the naive Bayes, the decision trees, and the logistic regression. We chose the decision tree because it has the highest line recall, which helps us accurately predict the lies. And in return, it also had the lowest truth recall. We can't use a truth recall of 1 because it's too good to be true as well.
And then for our next person, we did Obama. Obama, the well-respected person, as we know. And his distribution, again, is skewed. However, he tends to have higher truth rate than false. So when we went to go model his things, we found that naive Bayes had the best model performance. Not that dissimilar to other politicians and other groups as well. For our class of interest here, lie recall, which dealt with our overall target variable of whether we can see if they're lying or not. The model fit the data really well at 93%, or 93 recall rate. Again, if you just look at the illustration of the class distribution of truth versus lies, you can see that there's skewing towards truth. So it's impressive that the model is able to pick out those lies, given that there are so few compared to the truth that we have available.
So we can see here that this data is mostly right skewed, given that we have over 74% truths out of 295 total statements. So for Hillary Clinton, we do see that we have a high logistic regression sorry, we chose our best model for this, give me 1 second, sorry. So for this model, we chose logistic regression because it had the highest lie recall at 11.11, while it was evenly between both 1 and 0.96 in the truth recall. And for Hillary Clinton, we had the 5 most highest informative features, which are either, middle, still, united, and wall. So whenever Hillary Clinton said either or middle, it had a true ratio of 12.1 and a truth ratio of 1. And right below are statements when she used either and middle class.
So here we have Mr. Trump. So as you can see, according to the data, he has almost 70% of the statements he made are lies. Take that as you will. So our model that performed the best was decision tree. Even though logistic regression, they were both very similar, so they produced similar results. So Trump's top 5 most informative features were so a little backstory. So with our previous models, our models showed the top 5 most predictors for lying, but for some reason we tried to work it out, and Trump's showed us the most truthful statements. So instead of kind of tossing this out, we kind of decided, since according to numbers he seems to lie a lot more, it'd be kind of interesting to see what to look for when he's telling the truth. So here are his top 5 words for telling the truth. It was last, month, Korea, week, policy, with last having a 13-to-1 ratio. So for example, our trade deficit in goods reached nearly 80 billion last year alone, so that was true, apparently. And the bottom's longer, but basically all those words, when you use it, kind of indicate he's telling more of a truthful statement. So what did we learn? So we can't really give any specific recommendations as to who to support, who to vote. That's kind of really up to you. But the thing we did learn, that it appears that even politicians, they're not immune to machine learning. Questions?
Sampling method? How they sample those statements?
What do you mean by sampling?
Because they all make different, all politicians are going to make a plethora of statements, but what statements do they specifically pick to, determine whether it's a lie or truth?
As far as I know, it's actually submitted that, they have a board that submits quotes for them to actually.
How do they determine which quotes?
I think it's like opinion, or maybe like the most controversial ones that raise like flags to say, okay, research this and see, no label on it for the general public.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We are Group 2. My name is Jill Dombrowski. My colleagues, and our topic for this evening is presidential communication and the financial markets, or as we like to call it, the Donald and the Dow. Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, has been in office for 459 days as of today, logging nearly a total of 3,200 tweets during that time, which is about an average of 7 tweets per day. Our question, the question that we set for ourselves is, does that communication have an effect on the financial markets? Now, if you look at the slide behind me, you'll see from the headlines that are appearing, it's easy to assume that there is an effect of this communication on financial markets. So, as I said, we set a task for ourselves to develop a model that could possibly predict and determine what this effect might be. Stakeholders for this case, individual investors, professional traders, publicly traded companies, investment and retirement funds, these stakeholders are on both sides of the market. The implication, the possible use for this model is that we could develop a way for stakeholders to leverage this information to find a signal in this communication to direct financial planning and decision making. Victor is going to talk us through our data acquisition and restructuring.
Hello, everyone. So just to go over the data structure a little bit, on how we obtained the data. The data was actually grabbed from more than one source. It was grabbed from Twitter information and from the Dow Jones information. The first thing we did is we went out and we scraped Twitter for the Donald Trump's Twitter account. We used Python with the API called Tweetbee. We ended up grabbing like 3,200 tweets, ranging from December 2016 to April of this year. Once we had that information, we went to Yahoo Finance and we grabbed the historical Dow information from Yahoo itself. Once we had that financial information, we compared the closing price to the opening price. If the closing price was higher, we labeled it as positive. If the closing price was lower, we labeled it as negative. So that gave us basically our target variable. Once we had all the information, we tried to line it up. And the alignment proved to be a little more challenging than grabbing the data. As Jill mentioned, the president tweets multiple times per day, and we only had one record of the Dow movement. So to get around that, we ended up consolidating all the records for all the tweets for a single day, and all the tweets, or the frequency of tweets, all into one day. So any tweet that was done on a Monday, all was consolidated into one Monday record and matched to that Dow record. The next challenge we faced was the Dow. There's no information on holidays and weekends. So there was nothing to match it up with because the president doesn't take any Twitter days off. He continues to tweet. So after consulting with the group, we decided the best thing to do was to consolidate that information also, and use the next business day. So our final data set ended up being all tweets for a single day and matched to the Dow movement of that corresponding day. And if it was on the weekend or a holiday, it was pushed to the next business day. And now I'll pass it over to Esther to continue.
So after we restructured the data set, then we started running our model. Our best predictor model was the binary classification with the n-grams, bigrams, trigrams, and unigrams. So we ran all the models with this binary classification. We did the decision tree, logistic regression, naive Bayes, and the support vector machine. Our target variables is the positive or negative movement of the Dow Jones, and the distribution of class was very even, is 58% positive and 42% negative. So this is our output, our chosen metrics to understand this model was the negative recall. We see that the best predictor model is the naive Bayes with the bigrams of 0.94%. Then we have other metrics too. The second one that performed the best is the n-grams with the decision tree of 0.48%. And these are the 5 most important, most informative features based on the naive models. We see here the unigrams, the trigrams, and the bigrams. For example, number 1 for unigrams is the Secret Service. And for the bigrams, he mentioned Chuck Schumer, that has like a negative and positive relation of 6 and 1. And then the trigram, here we have number 1, as you may expect, is Make America Great Again. This actually has like a positive, this is the only one that has, as we can see in our data set, we shuffled this several times trying to find a positive information here, but we couldn't. But here we see that this one, when he say Make America Great Again, it has like a positive relation with the Dow movement of 4.2 to 1. And now I'm gonna pass it over to Luis.
How are you guys? Well, in this chart, I was just talking about to reaffirm what Steph said in terms of the features and the words that we found. For example, like in this tweet, when Donald Trump states that Toyota Motors said that we'll close a plant in Mexico, we'll build a new plant in Mexico, Trump immediately made a remark on the company. As you see on the chart, it created an impact. There's a downslope on the company. Mind that the tweet was placed at 10:14 in the morning, and you see it closes out at 120. When it opened, it was at 121 per share. So that's something that we were looking into to see how the market reacts. And this one is a positive one. And he actually, talk about good about company. He says, thank you for closing a factory in Mexico. Now, opening one, it created 700 new jobs. And in this tweet, if you notice the lower part, he tweeted at 9:19 in the morning. He's pretty early. And then automatically, as soon as the market opened at 9:30, the stock shares start going up. And when he closed it at a high of $13.17. When he opened, it was at $12.17. So we all know, like, Donald Trump made these tweets, and they created a big impact in the market. This is something that the Economist magazine did a research about, and they state that such market movements have become a regular occurrence during the Trump era. So if you see on the graph, before any tweet happened from Trump, there's no movements. Mostly mild, mostly like depending on the news. But once he tweets, depending on how negative or positive it is, it creates a movement in the market. Now I'm gonna pass it on to to Araceli, and we'll go over.
Hi everyone, thank you Luis. So these are our findings. So when the tweet comes, the market moves. And this is the role of the president or Donald Trump. So the most significant predictors for the market movement is when he mentioned a company in the sentimental analysis. So the market moves. So and then that's what the day traders are looking for, just that moment. That's what they're looking for, and that's the deal. As he mentioned, good positive, good money, get it. So, what is our next steps? Build a strong model. It's gonna give us, it's gonna help us to identify the firms that Donald Trump is gonna measure in his tweets. And also, we have a lot of correlation, as you can see before, but unfortunately, we don't have enough points because from, let's see, 20 tweets that he posts, only one mentions that company. It is not enough. So, but anyway, so that's gonna help us to do a good analysis, positive or negative. And that's gonna help us to predict the stock moves from the company. Thank you.
and beside me is Ethel, Destiny, and Kehinde. And today, our focus of our presentation is going to be the impact of news media on virtual currency pricing. So some of you have heard the word cryptocurrency, but what does it really mean? Cryptocurrency is a digital means of exchange that is not regulated by the government. So according to the IRS, cryptocurrency is considered a property and not currency. So some examples of cryptocurrencies are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Ripple. But for the focus of our presentation, we'll be focusing on Bitcoin and Ethereum alone. So Bitcoin is a digital means of exchange, an electronic cash system, meaning it's a digital currency, which has no central authority. And as of today, Bitcoin is worth $9,239 with a market capitalization of $157 billion. So if you're not investing, I don't know what you're doing. So when we look at Ethereum, Ethereum is similar to Bitcoin. However, this is a decentralized platform that runs through smart contracts without any third-party interference. So like Bitcoin, Ethereum has no central authority, and it's also worth $607 with a market capitalization of $67 billion. Overall, it has 100% peer-to-peer censorship proof. And I'm going to pass it on to Ethel to talk about the case and the objectives.
Thank you, Evelyn. So, like Evelyn mentioned, it's not regulated by the government. Any transactions that are currently out there that are involving virtual currency are not monitored, nor are they able to be transacted through financial firms, clearinghouses, or regulated banks. These types of currencies, due to its potential for upside, has a lot of unrealized gains. So those gains will result in a loss of taxable income. So that taxable income will affect the rate of collection and what is potentially available as a ability to increase revenue for our state and federal tax government. So what is our objective tonight? So our objective is to get news articles on cryptocurrency and see how that impacts pricing. And those pricing movements will be for, like Evelyn said, for Ethereum and for Bitcoin. We're going to create a classification model, and we're going to make the determinations based on published media reports to determine what effect it has on price movements. We're going to identify those words, we're going to identify those factors that drive market activity. And that's important because at the end, we want to be able to provide some tangible ways to provide recommendations to the government, because at the end of the day, it's the government that's losing out whenever those cryptocurrency prices tend to go up. So our target variable tonight will be on daily price change. So it'll be percent change in the movement of each of those cryptocurrencies. And we're looking for any positive movement, anything that's greater than 0. So if it's greater than 0, it's a positive. And if it's not greater than 0, then it's a negative. And so for the particular model, what we're going to do is we're going to acquire data from Bloomberg.com, which is an authoritative source for news media. And our plan is to basically get all those articles. We have up to 485 for Bitcoin and 251 for Ethereum. From investing.com, we're actually going to get our daily closing prices for a 1-year period to be able to calculate what the percent change is in terms of where the actual prices are from day to day. And at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to be able to model that pricing. So whenever we do our model, like we've been talking about, we're going to prepare the data. So we scraped articles from Bloomberg.com, and we calculated the daily price changes. We use VLOOKUP to match the prices between the percent change, the article dates, and the price dates. And it's very important that we make sure that it's accurate. What we're going to do is we're going to use bag of words. We're going to take all those articles, we're going to transform and featureize those articles to be able to prepare it into the training and testing sets. So what we've done is we basically took in 75% for training and 25% for testing. And at the end, we're going to be able to show what the results are. So I'm going to hand it over to Destiny, who's going to take us into Bitcoin.
So before we looked at the model performance metrics, we decided to look at the actual data first in order to make our own assumptions, and we looked at the naive guest first and foremost, and that was our benchmark that we used when looking at the model performance metrics. And so as you can see, this is the chart for the daily price change, percentage change of Bitcoin, and it's very volatile. And the same for Ethereum. The trend is this unsteady price movement. So our objective is to look for those very high price movements. We're going to look at all of the price movements, but we're targeting the extremely high price movements and look at the causal relationships that we can discover between the price movements and the content and the article text from the articles that we collected. So we determined that the best metric is positive recall, or the true positive rate. Recall measures the probability, the model's probability to accurately determine the positive price movements, or those movements above our 0% threshold. And the higher the recall indicates that the cryptocurrency is more likely to have a positive price movement, and in turn it is a greater revenue generator in terms of taxable capital gains for the government. These are the model performance metrics for the Ethereum. As you can see, positive recall, which is our best metric, has an 87% true positive rate. We also looked at the true negative rate. We wanted to make sure that we minimize that metric because that identifies the negative price movements, and we're not looking at those for the purposes of our analysis. And these are the model performance results for Bitcoin. The best model for Bitcoin is 90 days. The true positive rate is high at 92%, and the true negative rate is low at 18%. So for the remainder of our analysis, we decided to focus on Bitcoin because it is the leading cryptocurrency by market capitalization. And there have also been very extreme surges and record highs in its price movements. So these are the Nayib Bey's most informative words. And we were able to figure out the external factors that were moving these extreme positive price movements. So, for example, influential financial advocates for cryptocurrencies in their commentaries cause positive price movements. Regulatory rules as well, security, safety, disruptive as well, and that specifically is associated with blockchain technology and how it relates to the disruption in the global payment system. The most impactful external factor is political. And there are 3 words here that are associated with this most impactful political factor. And it's Mugabe, Zimbabwe, and resignation. So we went back to our original data set, and we searched for these 3 words, which had very high ratios for positive price movements. And the event that occurred in November 2017 causing these very drastic positive price movements is an international political factor related to President Mugabe's resignation. Now Kenny will be discussing the data limitations and our recommendations.
So as Destiny has taken us through the model performance, we also thought it would be useful for you guys to know what the data limitations are. And the first thing I'd like to mention is the fact that we scraped all our data from Bloomberg.com. Although it's an authoritative financial source, we cannot take away the fact that there will be some news media bias. Another factor is the fact that the
prices of Bitcoin is very volatile, as you can see from the previous slide. The prices kept changing off and on and off and on. That could also have impacted our model output. Also, because Bitcoin is more well known, we have a larger data set from Bitcoin when compared to Ethereum. And because we are more interested in the positive price movement, we thought least accurate metric for us would be the negative ripple. Now, taking us through the recommendations based on the outcome of our model, we saw that our model produced a very high positive ripple at 92%. And what that tells us is the fact that our model was able to predict positive price movements for 92% of the times correctly. So what that implies is that the government should leverage on the news media to determine the trend, specifically price movement. And if government is able to do that, they're able to track the gains from these cryptocurrencies, which in turn generates revenue for the government. The government can also improve compliance software solutions to monitor blockchain transactions. This will identify incorrect tax reporting. If the transactions are monitored, you know who the taxpayers are, you know what they are reporting, you know if they are under-reporting or overstating what they are getting. So it also helps us to know those regulatory oversights where the government is missing what needs to be reported. And finally, the government should also develop internal management processes and analytics reflecting customer crypto tax filing. If the government does this, they are able to know when the taxpayer understates its capital gains, they are able to track the revenue from such gains, and that eventually will increase the revenue for the government. That brings us to the end of our presentation, and we can move for questions.
So what we did was we selected articles from Bloomberg.com that mentioned the keywords Bitcoin or Ethereum, and that came up with approximately 500 articles for Bitcoin and 250 for Ethereum. Yes?
So you mentioned that the closing price was did you use a market closing date or is there like a closing plan for Bitcoin itself?
We used the market closing date, so whenever it closed, we used that price.
So would you say that this data is biased towards that time period because the most important is the president's resignation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a likely conclusion that had an impact. And, you know, not many leaders resigned, so that probably had a greater impact than if he didn't resign. Anything else? Thank you.
Sorry, I have to get it again. I had to write it down.
Great. All right, hello everyone. My name is Tyler Deal.
My name is Kevin Peterson.
And for our project, we looked at analyzing Indeed job posting data for psychology jobs in order to improve the Montclair Psychology Department. So now this background photo, this is the moment, it's a little light, but this is the moment that we're all anxiously waiting for. This is Montclair commencement. So there's a lot of hard work that goes into getting to this moment, but not all undergraduates are necessarily prepared for what happens next after this. So in fact, only 27% of college graduates have a job related to their major. In addition to that, only 62% of college graduates are actually able to obtain a job that even utilizes a college degree. So this is kind of a startling statistic, and this is what we're really looking to improve upon. So that brings us to our business case.
So we're looking to assist the Montclair State University Psychology Department and improve the undergraduate student's skill set in order to easily obtain a job after graduation. So our main goals were to implement Selenium to web scrape 1,800 psychology job postings on Indeed. We wanted to create a binary classification naive-based model to determine the most informative features for those job postings. We wanted to determine the key skills that are required for these entry-level psychology jobs. And then ultimately, we wanted to improve Montclair State University's undergraduate students' chances of obtaining a career that actually utilizes their degree. So looking at the psychology department, the reason we chose psychology department is because based on student size, the psychology program is actually the second most popular program based on student size. So the different options for the psychology department, there's the regular Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, there's a dual degree program with a bachelor and the master's at the same time. And there's also a couple different options where you can get your degree in addition to a teaching certificate. And then of course there's also the minor in psychology that students can get as well. So looking at the stats a little closer, looking from 2015 to 2016, there were 395 undergraduates that received their bachelor's degree in psychology. So looking at that earlier statistic, while only 27% of graduates will find a job related to their major, this is a problem. This leaves nearly 288 students in search of a job that utilizes their psychology degree. So I'm going to pass it over to Kevin. He's going to go talk about the program a little further.
So for our first kind of endeavor, problem was to find which jobs to even look for. Since none of us three were psychology majors, that was kind of hard. What we actually did was we went onto the Montclair website under the psychology department, and what we were actually able to do, this is a literal screenshot from the Montclair State website. So if you kind of read it, what it basically says that these are the areas for psychology majors in a BA alone. And obviously the areas that they can study for is research, mental health, human resources, social services, market research and marketing, corrections, and education. So that was kind of our first step for the data. We kind of had to figure out where to start. So we looked at these areas first. So basically from those areas, we went on to Indeed for a data set and we scraped 450 job postings for each of the following jobs. Substance abuse counselor, special education teacher, psychology research assistant, and then human resources. And the reason why we picked these 4 jobs is because the substance abuse counselor was under the mental health category, the special education teacher was under the education category, the psychology research assistant was under the research category, and then human resources was obviously under the human resource category. So next what we had to do is basically scrape this all from Indeed. So this is a screenshot from Indeed. Basically what we had to do was, because this is only for Montclair and this is for BAs, we had to narrow down the search radius for the jobs. So we couldn't just search psychology jobs or substance abuse in Indeed, because that wouldn't be really accurate if we're looking for doctorate level jobs in psychology in California. So what we're able to do is, obviously what we're looking for is substance abuse, where New Jersey, because the majority of people that go to Montclair are from New Jersey and go to New Jersey, so we use that as a state. And what you're actually able to do is, for the advanced search, you can actually do entry level jobs. So basically these are all the people with BA degrees that are just graduating college. And then like we stated before, we're used Selenium because at first we can't just scrape these job reviews. Basically we would have to open each tab and then the description, as you can see, is on the right. So we use Selenium to do that. And then next, Shani's going to be talking about the model.
So for this project, we used NIBASE binary classification model. So basically, we constructed 4 data sets, and for job 1, which is substance abuse counselor, we took as 1, and all other jobs as 0s. And for all the other, for all 4 jobs, we did the same thing. And so basically, there are multiple features, but it is considered assumed as binary classification model, and these are some most informative features for the model for job substance abuse counselor. And for special education teacher, there are 450 jobs, and other 3 jobs were 1,353. And for featured engineering, we used unigrams and lemmaterization. And accuracy was our best metric. And for substance abuse counselor, it was most accurate with 89%. And the informative features included assistant, document, and session words.
So as we were saying, that this is basically going to be helping the Montclair State Department basically figure out how to get their graduates to basically find a job. So as you can see from some of the most informative features, it's assistance, document, and session, but that doesn't really tell any insight for how they're supposed to be getting jobs or what they can do really in their classes or lectures or anything like that to help them get a job. So after the 90 days models, we did our own analysis of the most common words. So what we found for the most common words used in Indeed job postings for each job. So for research, it was teen, business, strategy. Special ed, it was management, information service. Substance abuse, it was counseling, communication, mental. And then HR, information, management, and communication. So what you can kind of tell just by looking at it closely is that all these are kind of focused around business. So basically what we're going to come to our conclusion, which is going to be later on in the presentation, is that for a lot of these people who are graduating with a psychology degree, they should also focus on a minor in marketing. So after all this, we kind of wanted to show how these most common words were actually physically in the job postings as well to kind of prove that what we're saying right here is true. So for example, for the entry-level substance abuse counselor, one of the jobs that we picked was the CADC substance abuse counselor. As you can see, these are all the highlighted words that are the most common throughout. So as you can see, it was addiction, counseling, family, documentation. For the special education teacher, it was analyzing data, team, communication as well. And then for the entry-level psychology research, which was just a research assistant, it was coordinate, data, manage, management, analysis. And then for the entry-level human resources, which was an HR service center representative at Bed Bath & Beyond. Some of the most keywords was management, data, teams, business, and like I said, management. So as you can see from all these keywords and from our previous slide, almost all these words have in common is that it's related to business. So for our conclusion, which Tyler is going to wrap up right now.
All right, so that brings us to our recommendations. So the psychology BA requires 38 credits that are specifically towards the core psychology program. So what we came up with was, in addition to those 38 credits, we would really recommend for psychology students to maybe get a minor in business, or at least use their electives to take business courses. In addition to focusing on business classes, we felt that the psychology program maybe could implement a service learning into their curriculum. So the whole idea with service learning would be for students to get some field experience while combining some academic learning objectives to the classroom. So that would help both the student to have something build on their resume, a little something extra, some more experience, and then also help the community as well. So hopefully with these recommendations, we can these undergraduates get a job in their field. Yes?
What was your target variable?
Our target variable when we built the models was actually the job itself. So when we built the models, it was substance abuse counselor versus the other 3 jobs, and then when we built all types of models, so it was looking at the human resource, the specific job titles.
Just trying to get an analysis. What was on the majors that graduated?
I couldn't find that specific stat on Montclair's website. Well, I could only find the amount of degrees they actually issued. So it was like 300 and something degrees they actually issued throughout the year 2015 to 2016.
We start with just New Jersey, just because that's where Montclair is located. But when you search for New Jersey, you do tend to get some of the jobs in the New York area as well.
Yeah, so every time, when we search in New Jersey, you would actually see that a lot of jobs were also in New York as well. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Now the presentation, big schools should listen. For our project, we decided to mine business analytics skills for entry-level jobs for data scientists, data architects, business analysts, and data analysts. Our team is Sweta, George, and myself. So I'll be presenting the business case. Shweta will be doing the modeling, and George will be providing the insights. There are 2.9 million jobs posted that have analytical skills as a requirement. They are the traditional ones we just talked about, the 4 jobs, but there are many other jobs that require analytical skills as well. There's 490,000 data science jobs in the US, but there's only 200,000 data scientists. The data science is an emerging field, business analytics. They're going to grow 15% over the next 5 years. Data scientists are going to grow 39%, so there's a lot of job growth. Across all job titles and experience levels, the average salary is $116,000 to $163,000. For entry-level jobs, it ranges from $60,000 to $90,000. The business analytics positions require a combination of statistics and mathematics, programming and databases, business knowledge, and communication skills. Each of the roles has a different blend of it. Data scientists obviously have statistics, mathematics, and decision theory. Data architects are programming and databases. Business analysts and data analysts are domain expertise in business and communication skills. But each of the jobs requires a blend or a mix of those categories. This infograph shows you data scientists and data engineers, which we use as a proxy for data architects, growing the most rapidly at 40%. In the middle blob, there's business analysts and data analysts growing about 15%, but something that's related to the 2.9 million job postings that are related to analytical skills. You have other jobs beyond the traditional jobs, which are financial analysts, marketing analysts, product manager, and human resources. So what we decided to do for our business case is how can young professionals or students entering the job market know what skills they should be learning and what they need, what employers are demanding. We also noticed that because data science is an emerging field, there's frequently ambiguity in terms of what job roles and what responsibilities there are. And we noticed that particularly as it relates to data scientists and data architects. We'll get into that later in the presentation. For our solution, we're mining jobs from Indeed for those 4 positions: business analyst, data architect, and data scientist. We're using a multi-nominal classification model. We're going to apply machine learning algorithms, and we're going to provide key insights, and these are for entry-level positions. Shweta's going to go over the modeling approach.
So before I start with my modeling approach, let's understand what multinomial is. Multinomial means that it is a classification model which is used when we are going to predict more than 2 target variables. Here in our data set we have 4 target variables as in job titles. They are business analyst, data architect, and data scientist. So we have used this multi-nominal classification method to find the top key skills for these job titles. As we all know that Indeed is one of the largest job searching sites, so we tried using Indeed as source of our data. We have scraped Indeed for all of these job titles, and then we have filtered Indeed for like job type as full-time, experience as entry-level, location as US, and we sorted by the date to get most recent jobs. Once we fetch all the jobs, we try to remove the duplicacies. While doing this duplicate job removal, we found that out of 4,000 jobs, there were like 2,600 duplicate jobs. And we left with just 1,353 of them as unique one. So they were around 67% of duplicacies. So we worked hard to remove those duplicacies. Then we did our cleaning part, and we made our database. Database was total 1,353 records with 1,078 companies across 45 states. As modeling approach, we normalize our job title. That means we use a standardized job title in our data set. We work for data linkage, as in like removing the actual job titles from the job summary, and we remove the duplicates. We remove stop words, non-letter, punctuations. We made all the job summary as lowercase, and then we extracted the overall keywords for each of these jobs. This is a distribution of our data. With total 1,353, we have 487 as business analyst, 498 as data analyst, 74 as data architect, and 294 as data scientist. And then these are the distribution of these 1,078 companies across this US. You can see the maximum is for this California, then we have New York, then Washington DC, Texas, and Chicago. These are the areas where we can get maximum of jobs which are for data scientists or data analysts. And these are our matrices and models. We work to make naive-based logistic regression, decision tree, and random forest. And we used unigrams, bigrams, trigrams, and n-grams. To all this, we found unigram performed well for us, and decision tree come with the best matrices, and we consider recall as our best matrix. Since we don't want to lose any of the skills which we need to go for a job, so we make sure that our FM should be as low as possible. So we keep recall as our best matrices, and decision tree performed well with highest of 91% as recall. These are the matrices for n-grams. This is a confusion matrix which we get for our data set. This is from decision tree using unigrams. Here, diagonal elements are the true positives. True positive for data scientist, for data analyst, business analyst, and data architect. Here you can see, and these are the error or misclassifications. This 13A says that our models have to struggle a lot to classify between the data scientist and data analyst job. They are kind of similar jobs. They have similar descriptions. Looking more into matrix files, these are the matrices from other models. This is from logistic regression, from random forest, from decision tree, and naive-based. So all this you can see the misclassification for data scientists and data analysts are on top. So now I would like to call George to explain more on this ambiguity.
Thanks, Shweta. Move on to the next slide. And there's a good reason why you see a lot of text. We're going to take a couple seconds for you to see if you guys can distinguish the difference between these two job posts. You have one on the left and one on the right. I'm actually going to pick someone random, not so random. Nitish, do you want to take a guess on which one's which? You have either data analyst or data scientist. Okay, just on the one. Okay. 50-50, right? So here's the actual true titles. Data analyst. Yeah, close enough, right? 50-50. So you have data analysts on the left, data scientists on the right. And here we just have highlighted the similarities between them. I mean, it's kind of related to communicating data, visualizing the data, processing these complex data sets, and pretty much gathering all the requirements you have to work on a project. So now we'll move over to our keywords. These are our target variables, right, that they mentioned, the 4 titles.
And then in green, you're gonna see the ones that are similar across multiple titles, and then in the reds, the ones that are distinct. So if you look at Visualize, it actually appears under pretty much all four, but it's the top one for business analysts, data analysts, and data scientists. And that could be due because they're dealing with visualizing data or visualizing systems, things like that. Then we have streamlining. Streamlining only appears for business analysts, and that may be due because they're the ones dealing with systems of the company and how the flow of things work, right? And then lastly, I want to point out storage. It turns out it's a really big indicator of distinguishing the difference between the others and data architect. And that's mainly due because they're the ones dealing on how do you extract the data, where do we store it. They're like the core of kind of what these other people do, right? Because where are you going to store all this data, where are you going to hold it? And that's like a key factor on pretty much having the other people employed. And now we have some insights into our data. I want you to focus on San Francisco, the top, was it your left? They have the most volume of data-related roles with a higher mix of data scientists. And I want you to keep in mind that San Francisco is the tech hub, so it makes sense, right? And then we have New York, our financial capital, and they have a higher mix of data analysts. And that may be due to the fact that they're dealing with financial analysis, risk modeling, things like that. And now these are key insights, but I'm just gonna go over three. If you remember from the table that I showed you, the top 5 words, there's ambiguity between some of these words, but there's also the ones that are distinct that can tell you the difference between the certain job roles that require for certain job titles. Then the third one, hold on. Okay, so yeah, according to the data, currently the top the skills in demand is data visualization, data warehousing, and also data modeling. And that data modeling stood out to us because that's very broad. You know, they could deal from Excel spreadsheets to predictive models. So that's why it may appear across 4 different titles. And then, actually, the last step. When you're applying for these jobs, this industry of data-related positions, they're not well defined currently right now. So you can use that to your advantage. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? You can apply for maybe a small company that may not have a well-defined description for what a data scientist is, and you'll have the title, but that also comes with maybe a couple of regrets in the future where they're asking you to do a lot of things that they may need different roles to be filled to fulfill what the company should be doing. And now I'll pass it off to Jim to kind of the next steps that we wish we could have done if we had more time.
So to enhance the model, one of the things we want to look at is hard and soft skills. A lot of these jobs require communication skills, collaboration, teamwork, and we weren't able to get to that as easily as we thought, so we want to create an engineered feature to see which roles require more soft skills than other ones, and then we want to drill down. A lot of the job descriptions talked about the technical skills, but they didn't talk as much about the soft skills, and I think that's part of in the profession, that's an underemphasized skill and talent, and so that would be something we want to explore more in terms of researching them. We would also want to try doing it at different career levels, mid-level or executive levels, to see what the distinctions would be and what we would need to progress in our career further down. Additional opportunities to utilize this data would be for recruiting and job training, for universities to identify what course offerings to have. We could use it in other career tracks. You could look at marketing positions or finance positions. And there's also maybe the opportunity to use it for compensation, so to match skills with compensation.
What's creepy, were you guys able to segment only the skills portion, or you had to grab
Well, it's funny you should ask that. These are the companies that had the most job openings by job title. You can see Apple is obviously in the West Coast, Kaiser Permanente is in the West Coast, Capgemini is all over the country. But if you are looking for a job, there's more of them in San Francisco and California. I think you had a question?
My question was similar to Apple's class, we're talking about.
Well, I mean, in my honest opinion, is kind of like find what you're good at and what you enjoy, and look for something that's related to that. I remember a classmate asked us, like, oh, are we only able to apply to, let's say, business analysts? But there's more than just business analysts. And business analysts actually deal with like systems and things like how the company works. So we have data analysts, marketing analysts, operations analysts. I think they're all just titles. Find what you're good at, and go for that.
So what skill set are you best at? Where are you comfortable? What do you enjoy? And then just keep in mind that there are those 4 job titles, but there are a lot of other job titles. There's like an HR analytics one, there's marketing managers, product managers. So there's a lot of opportunities to utilize the skills and education will be in here. Yeah, let's do it real quick, a bonus slide.
Finally, we get to the good stuff.
Anybody else?
All right, we have one more presentation, so. All right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So we decided to do a project on predicting cyberbullying on Twitter. My name is Chantel.
My name's Sammy.
I'm David.
I'm out.
All right, so just a key point. Your discretion is advised. So cyberbullying has become increasingly common amongst teens today, in today's age. 38% of suicide victims who attempted to take their own lives within the past year reported that they were being cyberbullied. Bullying or cyberbullying can cause people to have depression, and possibly, in rare cases, it can cause people to commit suicide. 34% of teens were victims of cyberbullying, and 15% of adults admitted to being a part of some act of committing cyberbullying. And 25% of students do not show up to classes, skip classes, just because of cyberbullying. So by developing a model to predict cyberbullying, high school administrators might be able to better identify students who are at risk of being cyberbullied, and the ages could possibly range between 15 to 19 years old. Early detection can also help minimize cases of cyberbullying, and also it can reduce the social burden associated with cyberbullying. Understanding the bullying language and dialogue can identify instances of cyberbullying on Twitter and even other social media platforms.
So before jumping to other stuff, we want to give you guys an idea what cyberbullying is. And we need to define it before we label it. So based on past research, there were 3 different definitions, but we consolidated it and to give you guys a better emotional impact of what cyberbullying has on an individual. So the definition goes the following. When the internet, cell phone, or other devices are used to send, post, text, or image intended to deliberately hurt, embarrass, harass, harm willfully and repeatedly in a hostile manner. And that's what cyberbullying is. And so here's some example. See if you guys can tell which one's cyberbullying tweet or which one's non-cyberbullying tweet. Even if you can't really tell, just keep in mind that give you guys a good idea how we classify cyberbullying tweets through our presentation. So scraping the data. So we got 1,200 tweets from Twitter. And we use a package called Python.Twitter. We did keyword research based on types and phrases. And we came up with 66 types of different cyberbullying based on past research in articles. And the different types are physical appearance, so criticizing someone's physical appearance, sexuality, so someone's sexual orientation and gender, race, racism, culture, using a person's cultural norm against them, politics, someone's political affiliation, intelligent, and criticizing someone's intelligent. So 100 tweets on different type of cyberbullying, and that's the first 600 tweets. And the last 600 are the 12 phrases, 50 each. We use curse words because based on past research, curse word, based on past research of cyberbullying tweets had a higher amount of profanity. We use mean words because based on past research, they use mean words to retrieve their tweets. And here's an example of a category, a type of cyberbullying tweet, which is the word fugly. Fugly commenting on someone's physical appearance would fall under the category of physical appearance.
So for labels, 5 of us manually labeled 1,200 tweets. We used a binary coding, label 0 equal Boolean, non-Boolean, 1 equal Boolean. For us to improve our quality of label, we did a cross-validation. The reason for that is that even all of us are looking at the same definition, we may have a different perspective of Boolean, and to also eliminate human error. So if 3 of us labeled 1, then it was Boolean, otherwise it was 0. For the pre-processing, we decided to focus on primary tweets only. We used data duplication to remove tweets, also to remove stop words, and we only used English tweets only. After cleaning, we had 1,067 tweets remaining. 60% of the tweets were non-Boolean and 40% of the tweets were Boolean. And for us to gain a further context, we decided to analyze unigram, bigrams, trigrams, and the combination of the 3 for our models. Since cyberbullying can come in the form of words or multiple phrases directed to a person, we believe this would be the best approach to gain a different perspective. Also to realize new insights. As you can see in the top tweet, the highlighted word is used as an insult, which was in the context of a unigram, whereas in the bottom tweet, the highlighted word is used as an inspiration in the context of a bigram. And
so with those 16 models, naive-based decision tree, logistic regression, support vector, and unigram, bigram, trigram, and a combination of bigram, trigram. And we use recall as the most important feature because metric because we want to see out of all the cyberbullying tweets, how many was our model able to correctly identify the cyberbullying tweets. And the best model was a combination of bigram and decision tree with 81% recall.
Based off of our, based off the naive space, probably most important features, we collected some colorful language from our data set. As you can see, bullying to non-bullying ratio, where in every instance of non-bullying, X amount of bullying tweets were presented. So when someone was describing someone as a piece of fecal matter, 16 cases of bullying were found for every non-bullying tweet, and so forth. Language can't really describe because bad, not appropriate. Next slide. So here's a wonderful example where someone is not really pleased with a certain relationship, and she is directing her emotions towards someone and describing someone as a piece of human waste product. Next slide. Non-bullying tweet. Again, we see the very colorful language, but in this case, we can't really portray that this is a case of bullying because we don't necessarily have the intent or direction of the hate towards the other user. It's just merely saying the driver, but it's not towards that particular individual. It could be other drivers and so forth. Here's a good example of bullying where it is, again, we're noticing a pattern here in terms of context and direction towards another person, but in this case, the person is talking towards, well, rather saying that they're not really smart, and they are blaming that on their political view. This person just thinks that they're stupid, so they're just bullying themselves. So we can't necessarily say that, this is cyberbullying. It's like, no, the guy's just having constructive criticism towards himself. Now for Chantal to provide some additional insight.
So in addition to predicting cyberbullying on Twitter, we also did further analysis on the types of bullying we used to get our data set. So not only did we label 1,200 records of data as bullying and not bullying, we also labeled each data by type of bullying. So that was fun. But by doing this, we wanted to get also the distribution of the types of bullying that we had in our data set. So we discovered that based on the bullying tweets that we had in our data set, that insulting someone's intelligence, as you can see, was considered more at risk of cyberbullying than using curse words or insulting someone based on sexuality. And I think this goes back to the definition of identifying cyberbullying. So the point was to find tweets that hurt, harmed, or harassed an individual. So it's an interesting finding because it harkens back to the idea that context is very important. So just because someone is criticizing maybe like, the physical appearance or using a colorful language, like a profanity word, that didn't necessarily mean it fell under a definition of cyberbullying. So perhaps instances where someone is calling out someone's lack of intelligence, that could mean they're either humiliating them or degrading their character. And what's more interesting is that this attests to the fact that two of our most important features actually were related to intelligence, such as low IQ. Okay, and then we further took our analysis also by not only trying to check the distribution of the type, but also to see if there was some relationships between them. So by using TF-IDF vectorizer, we found certain types did cluster together, such as culture, sexuality, race, and then culture, curses, intelligence, physical appearance, and political words. So this is also very insightful because it possibly shows that there might be some crossover between the types of bullying. So, for example, someone that is bullying on the basis of physical appearance may be less likely to bully someone on the basis of sexuality or culture. So that shows that bullies are not necessarily unique. They kind of go to this, either resort to the same language or they resort to the same targeted group of people. So that was very interesting for us to see. And another example is that one of the tweets that we saw in our data set, someone was calling a Republican another low IQ Trumpster. So that really ties back into our second cluster, which is someone criticizing the Republican as low IQ and again, their political affiliation. So this is very important to analyze because it shows that for us that cyberbullying is very nuanced and very contextual. It's not very super defined. And it's important that we identify them as clusters because then we can start, saying like, hey, we can put these as profiles and we can start to evaluate cyberbullying as more like a cohort rather than just looking at it overall.
Now, I know you guys have been waiting. We have some very impactful, insightful information using the finest technology and data visualization possible that will affect the whole industry as a whole. We present the dark cloud. Very insightful, huge impact on the industry. I mean, we're getting calls from Twitter everywhere, but obviously great. I know you guys are feeling really estranged, very emotionally impacted. So to end this off, we want to give you some mind bleach to clear your thoughts with happy thoughts and optimism that the world isn't so bleak as we have assumed from the study of cyberbullying.
So, any comments concerning confidence? Confidence first. Yes. Go ahead. Oh, the couple hours. Yeah.
Some days for, well, it didn't take necessarily days to do the actual label, but the cross-validation.
Yes.
Do you think it uses filtering in terms of stopping, handing out bullying?
I think it's possible because since, based on our model, we like featureize it by using keywords. So with that keywords in mind, Twitter could potentially put those keywords in mind and make it their own predictive model, so then that's how they can filter it out. And especially we did it by type, so we could even put into types like, okay, the word ugly is under physical appearance, or low IQ is under intelligence. So they can kind of start identifying that. So I think that's possible.
Alright, so from the beginning,
Just the last slide, the last slide.
There you go.
All right, thank you guys.
Say a couple of words in the way of concluding. So you might have learned some Python. You probably learned something about the business value. But I hope above all else, you learned that you can learn outside the classroom. Because that was the real goal of this course. It wasn't officially announced, but that's really it. And for those of you who have been in the industry for a while, lifelong learning has become a must for professional success. And I've tried to create the context to enable you to do that in the context of this course. And I think probably about 4 weeks ago, most of you probably didn't believe this was doable. But where you are today proves that it is. And it's a pretty high bar. I'm really happy with what you've done. So as soon as I get the recordings, I'll share them.